Making sure that chemistry stays intact. Welcome in, everyone, to Michigan Wolverines Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Kick back, enjoy, leave those comments and questions there in the chat. Keep in mind that Super Chat's available as well to help us keep this thing going here at the Voice of College Football. We've got TJ Konarski here from Ronin Sports Talk. TJ has joined us a number of times here on the Michigan Show. TJ, we appreciate you stopping by as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. Looking forward to another show. Looking forward to talking Michigan football.
Yeah, and I got to say that maybe the first thing that we jump into here would be the NFL Combine. And so Michigan set the record for the most Combine invites. I know that a lot of Michigan fans are curious to watch the NFL draft more so than they have in years and years and years because of the possibility that Georgia number of 15 from a couple years ago could get knocked off by the Maize and Blue. I at one point went through and counted everybody that I saw as a draft eligible player, not just that they're draft eligible and not that they're going to be drafted for sure, but that had a decent shot at getting drafted. And we're looking at like 22 guys, something like that could possibly get drafted. So it's just been a crazy collection of talent, and development obviously has been the big key in all of this. This program is probably more so than anybody in the country, I think, outside of the teams that have just gone for broke in the transfer portal, like Florida State's had to in recent years, and they've had ridiculous returns in the transfer portal. But for a team that's been solid in its roster and too deep and just use the transfer portal as, okay, we have a need there, we're going to go get a third cornerback. We've got a need here, we're going to grab a tackle. We've got a need here, let's go get one of the best centers in the country a couple of years ago. That it's been more strategic for Michigan, and that is obviously played into this NFL push for this coming draft as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the key is Michigan develops for NFL development, right? They had NFL coaches, so you can see that with the O-line play. I mean, we have 6 offensive linemen invited to the combine, right? I mean, if you think about how crazy that is, only 5 starts. So to even get that opportunity for the boys is great. But I think that's the key, plus you had a lot of buy-in, right? You had a lot of kids not jump into the portal, leaving the team to other programs. The winning helped, obviously, but I think the reality is the strength and conditioning program really did a lot for these guys and made everybody ready to be a future NFL player. And that's why you see 18 players entering the combine this year. And last year led the Big Ten in most players drafted. So, and I think next year will be another strong year.
So TJ, when you look at the combine, of course, everybody that just has a periphery look at the combine is going to go to JJ McCarthy first and foremost. And I don't know that the combine has gotten to a place with the quarterback play. And if you really understand how good these guys are, they can throw the ball in a bucket all day with no pass rush, no pads on, no coverage and all that. So it just looks pretty and looks good. It might be more of a challenge and more of a legitimate evaluation for the other positions, but still it's fun to watch the quarterbacks out there, starting with JJ and then going through the standouts for you throughout the weekend. Who do you think really made a move for themselves?
Well, going with JJ, I mean, we kind of, Michigan fans, we kind of knew he would excel during the whole combine portion with the interviews and meeting with the teams. That's why he's rising on the boards. And, he has all the skill, all the talent. He can make all the throws, right? Although he did have some trouble with the hash throws going to his left side. But, yeah, no surprise to see him rising up the draft boards. I will say I am slightly surprised to see so many analysts say he's ahead of Penix. I know Penix had his injury history and his age, right? But to see him now at a steady 4 for a lot of analysts is interesting to me. Looking to be a top 10 pick. I mean, I thought being top 20 was going to be challenging, but it's looking like a more I think you can put money on it, to be honest with you. And then looking at other players, that stood out the combine. I mean, one of the players who stood out the most for me was Cornelius Johnson. Athletically, I think he was ranked. I don't know if you follow RAS scores or not, but ranked like top 50 of any wide receiver who's ever been tested in the combine. So that was very interesting. Blake Corum getting 27 bench reps at the combine, although his 40, I think he ran a 4.51, which, I think we would all like to see a 4.4, but like he said, he has a month less of prep due to the college football playoff. I'm interested to see what he does in his pro day. AJ Barner did solid. Mike Sanders still, though. I mean, he showed out. I mean, if anyone made their draft stock rise, it was Mike Sanders, so which was good to see. And, unfortunately, a lot of our guys are actually waiting for the pro day to do more of their measurables. So we'll have to see, what numbers come out or leak out from that, which, should be interesting to see.
Absolutely. I got to say, considering Cornelius Johnson's size, he's got size. He's about 6'3", and to see him put that number down in the 40 is like, okay,
right.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it surprised I think it surprised a lot of us. I know it surprised a lot of us because I'm on the boards, the message boards, and to see him be we know he's athletic and we know he has good hands and he's a solid route runner, but sometimes you don't see the explosion on the field. But when you see his testing numbers, he has it. But that's the difference, right? Some teams look at GPS, which is gameplay speed, and maybe he's not always excelling on the field that you will see in the testing numbers, but I mean, I think he's a solid wide receiver that you should see probably on day 3 get drafted.
So you don't see that as, oh, I wish we would have used him more. It's just, who can argue with 3 consecutive Big Ten championships and national championship? I know that prior to the national championship, there were a lot of Michigan fans saying, and I get it. Hey, let's open it up. Let's join 21st century football. And this team, I still believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was like in the bottom 15 to 20 in pass attempts this past season. So it worked.
So what's funny is if you look at the beginning of the year, we were more passive aggressive. Like we passed the ball more. We were more aggressive with passing. And then as the season progressed, we played this stiffer competition. We kind of relied on our own old ways, which is just pound, pound, pound. I mean, Penn State was obviously the pivotal, moment where everything shifted in that sense. But I think we would like to see the playbook opened up a little more, especially when you have Cornelius Johnson, you got Colson Loveland, you got my guy from Hawaii. What's his name? Why am I forgetting? Ran a 4.41, 10 touchdowns. Not Ronnie Bell. That was last year. Why am I
Monte Morgan? 10 touchdowns.
No,
he didn't.
Shit. From Hawaii. Why am I slipping on his name right now?
Yeah, why am I?
I got it right here. Let's see. Roman Wilson.
Wilson.
Yeah. All right, Roman Wilson. You got Roman Wilson. So you have these weapons, right? With Samaj Morgan, who was showing as the year progressed. So it would be nice to see the playbook open up more, but it just isn't who we are, right? That's just not our identity. So, although I think next year we will see that open up with Kirk Campbell being the OC.
Well, I already learned something tonight. Roman Wilson's from Hawaii. I would have never guessed that. Didn't know that. Maybe I knew that during his recruitment, but I forgot.
Yeah.
All right. Got TJ Konarski here from Ronin Sports Talk. What's going on over there at Ronin Sports Talk, and why should people check that out?
So I'm on Twitter. I call it Twitter. Just following Detroit sports scene. Red Wings, Lions, Tigers, Pistons. Of course, staying faithful to Michigan, and just keeping up on top of everything, giving my opinion here and there, and just enjoying the ride of all the teams because everyone's doing pretty good, unless you're a Pistons fan. But outside of that, everyone's doing pretty good.
It's a fairly new concept in college football that there's a general manager for these teams. Just another addition to mirror the NFL and say, look where we're headed. But when you look at player acquisition, it's even in some instances more complicated than the NFL, because at least the NFL, they know, okay, this is the amount of our roster that we've got locked down. They're under contract. We only have to deal with these particular players. They're the only ones eligible for free agency. Free agency is very restricted. just this one period of time during the year. And I know transfer portals just after the season and after spring, but with so many coaches getting let go, it continues on and on and on and on.
Mhm.
And again, with the player acquisition and both from the high school ranks and now collegiately, it's become just way too much, obviously, for the coaching staff to deal with. So this is a pretty pivotal position, this general manager's position. And Michigan goes with a new general manager in Sean McGee, but he's been with Michigan in the past, went to the NFL with the Chicago Bears. So any thoughts in particular? It seems to fall in line with a theme I'm going to get to with the coaching staff, where they go back to a known commodity.
Right. Yeah. So Sean McGee, formerly with us before he went to Chicago. The reason why he left the program is because Harbaugh wanted to add Tom Gamble, formerly of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Tom Gamble left with Harbaugh to the Chargers. So that's why that position became available. And so Sean McGee's contract wasn't renewed when he was up for an extension. But so that's what happened there. But he came back, and it's a major addition, right? Because he has former connections from being here previously. He understands what is Michigan, what are the deficiencies, what are the strengths, and he's a major component for our future NIL programs, right? So he's kind of the middleman. He's essentially an NIL director. He has other other roles as well, right? But he's essentially the middleman for our collectives and our football program, because obviously, although with the new Tennessee verdict, I guess there's no rules anymore with that. But at the time, you needed a gap where your program was under a microscope. But well, kind of, unless you're Miami. But yeah. So I mean, the thing is too, he's got to deal with roster management and things of that nature, and especially today, they're essentially NFL programs. We're semi-pro. The way college football is heading, right? And we're soon, in my opinion, Mark, and I've watched your show. I haven't caught up on your opinion on this though, but it seems to be we're heading to a CBA, right, with the players, and you're going to see a GM become. I mean, how many programs have general managers? Is this something that a lot of programs haven't adopted yet, or does Ohio State have a general manager?
Yes, they do, and I can't answer that question. But it seems like every team that I'm running into, I'm seeing that title. So my guess would be 30 or 40.
Okay. Yeah, it seems to be a more prominent role, especially the way things are trending, and I think, the Sean McGee hire, I think, is going to really pay off down the road. I think right now they're still just building the infrastructure, though, because unfortunately with Harbaugh, when he was here, I mean, he brought us a national title, and we all appreciate that. But, him along with our administrative staff is a little bit behind in the NIL era. So now that the infrastructure is being laid and donors are being more accepting, or I would say more encouraged with what they're being told, because Harbaugh didn't want to give any donors access, right? So that was a real limiting factor to donations for the NIL program. Because when you got that kind of money, you don't just hand money. You want something in return, whether it be like on-field access or practice or what have you, right? So from my understanding, Sherrone Moore is taking that approach, and having Sean McGee, he's the one who's bridging the gap with that. So it should be a major addition for the program.
We got TJ Konerski here from Ronin Sports Talk. We appreciate the super chat contributions, and shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section. So here's the deal with the Amazon link: is it's completely transparent to you folks. If you use it, you're not even going to know you're using it. It still recognizes your account, who you are, gives credit to all those various things within your account. However, it kicks us a portion of that. So my thought, TJ, is that I'm hearing that Amazon is worth like 1.7 or 8 trillion dollars, and it's a shock to many that we're only worth like 1.3 trillion here at the Voice of College Football. So we're trying to catch Amazon. So folks, please, help us out there. Trying to catch Amazon. There we go.
On your way.
So looking at this coaching staff, and I was on Michigan podcast with Steve Dace this afternoon. So folks, check it out. we were talking about this coaching staff, and he was basically just asking me, okay, what are the priorities for Michigan football this spring? What are you looking for? That sort of thing. And I got to say that of course, it's ingenious because it just won a national championship and it's owned the Big Ten for 3 years.
Mhm.
But what Jim Harbaugh was able to do back in 2020 in forming this coaching staff and restarting, resetting, and maybe the COVID year was in some way a blessing. Not that I thought the backlash against Michigan football and Harbaugh was way too extreme. I became a Michigan, and not so much a Michigan, more of a Jim Harbaugh apologist of sorts for about a year and a half to say, whoa, hang on here. This guy, look what he did at Stanford. Look what he did with San Francisco 49ers. Look what he did here with Michigan when he first got here. Hang on. The guy knows what he's doing. Just pump the brakes on that. They just went 9-3 and played Alabama in a bowl game. It's not the end of the world. And what he was able to do is bring in this coaching staff. And one of the things I was amazed with, if you recall, and I'm sure you do because you know the team like the back of your hand, is that in that 2021 season, before it was all unproven at that point, in the spring, most of those coaching additions came in like days before spring practice. It wasn't like they had a month to get together, plan out the spring, go to it. He was bringing them in right as spring practice was starting, and they were able to mold and gel together and, of course, take off from there.
Yeah.
And now the blueprint is, starting with the head coach, of course, is let's continue with this network that we've built of people that have worked together, that understand the Michigan brand, that have a connection here, and we don't want to let go what we've built.
Right. Yeah, especially bringing in Wink Martindale.
Yeah.
And then bringing in Brian Jean-Marie, right? And then, the analyst that they just brought in, Kevin Wilkins, who is formerly of Baltimore and the Giants and worked with McDonald and Minter. So there's no question they're just moving forward with philosophies like they previously had. The Greg Scruggs hire that they just did, taking him from Wisconsin, was a major get in terms of maintaining recruiting pipelines in the Midwest because we lost that with Klingscale. So you're seeing a lot of smooth transition in a way. I mean, I'll tell you what though, Mark, it was a hard month of Harbaugh just snatching guys left and right, and it was very drawn out. I mean, even today, we don't have everybody fully announced, like who was our defensive coordinator, or I'm sorry, not our defensive coordinator, but our defensive back coach, Lamar Morgan. He still hasn't been officially announced yet, so he can't even recruit. So we're not even at full capacity, and it's March. So that's one negative right now. But outside of that, everyone's been announced, everyone's official, and I think the good thing is there is familiarity with the scheme. Because Brian Jean-Marie was here for Mike McDonald's first year, and or first 2 years, I think, or let's see, definitely the first year. And I think we'll see a smooth transition with Wink Martindale, and I think. And the good thing, too, is, I'm sure you've looked at the roster. You seem to be pretty tapped into Michigan. We're bringing in a lot of talent. We got Will Johnson coming back. We got Grant and Mason Graham and et cetera, all the edge guys. So it should be an elite defense next year. I actually think it'll be a top 10 defense again. I don't think there'll be a letdown. I think the concern is, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is obviously quarterback, wide receiver. And some people probably would be concerned about the offensive line, but I'm not. I think offensive line is going to be just as strong as it's been. I mean, I don't actually expect a step down due to we have two transfers, being Prevey from Northwestern and then Miles Hinton, who was previously from Stanford, who was already on the roster for a year. He's going to fill in at left tackle. And then the other three guys who are going to step up on offensive line, they've been developing for 3 years. They've been in the pressure cooker. So, I think the team's going to be strong. I think there's going to be a smooth transition with the coaching staff. And I'm actually really excited with the hires that Sherrone brought in. I think he did a really good job with that.
Yeah, I think basically what they've done is Sherrone has followed the blueprint of Jim Harbaugh. And again, they're trying to keep this magic that they've got bottled up and keep it going by having very familiar faces and connections in place and continue to draw from that Michigan chain of sorts. And you basically eliminate the variable. So we truly don't know how this coaching staff is going to operate, how well they're going to gel, but the risk has been minimized down to about that much. We pretty much do know, and every coaching staff across college football changes every offseason to a certain extent. So you try to, of course, eliminate those negatives you've had. So every coaching staff is changing, and they've changed for two reasons. Either you have let people go to say, you're not getting the job done, you're gone, we're replacing you to upgrade, or, we lost somebody really good and we got to try to maintain and get somebody just as good. Now, Michigan, the positive is they're winning championships. The negative is they're not picking people out the door because everybody's doing the job. So they're losing good people and just trying to maintain what they had.
Right. But, and they're also promoting within, right? So you got Grant Newsome, promoted from tight ends to offensive line. You got Kirk Campbell, who's now the offensive coordinator. So, one of the, 5 stages of leadership is developing leaders, right? So you're seeing that within the program. And I think, I think that's really key. I think it's really fruitful for the university. And, I'm just really encouraged with the staff. I mean, in the beginning, it was actually getting a little hectic because we were swinging and missing on some defensive coordinator options. But, getting Wink Martindale, I think a lot of Michigan fans are pretty happy about that. Some people have a fear that he's Dr. Blitz and he's not going to run cover 2 or cover 3 or anything, but that's not actually the case. If you look at the numbers, me and John, we discussed it, and by opponent is how coverages are designed with Wink Martindale. Sometimes he's more cover 2, cover 3, but sometimes he'll cover 1 and he'll blitz more. But I just think. I think so far Michigan has passed the test. I think the next test for the university or for the football program is recruiting, spring practice. We have a big quarterback battle coming up that I think has a lot of question marks, and that's where the real concerns are going to be, for the program. And we're just going to have to see how things play out this spring.
Hey, TJ, back to Sherrone Moore, because we're seeing a national championship team not bring back its head coach for the first time since, I believe, Tom Osborne retiring in 1998. So that's been a long, long time. And so that's just a different dynamic that this program's facing that hasn't been seen in a long time. Eventually, Sherrone Moore is going to be his own man, do his own thing. But obviously, he would be a fool to try to change too much. The system works. And he's lived it. He's been part of the success, of course, a huge part of the success. But have you seen anything out of him that leads you to believe, okay, this may be a little different under him, or that might be a little bit different, or is it too early to tell at this point?
Well, I definitely know off the field things are going to be different in terms of recruiting. I mean, he's already said he's going to widen the scope. He's going to look at players that previously wouldn't have been Michigan guys, culture fits, under Harbaugh. So we do know that's going to expand. We also know NIL is going to be a little bit more aggressive. Now, I don't fully know what that's going to mean in terms of are we going to actually start paying high school players, because we do pay our own players. Like, that is obviously what we do. But how far are we willing to go? I've heard speculation that we do think we're going to be a little more aggressive in that area, but until we see the results landing top 100 guys, I just, it's to be seen. But in terms of on the field, I do actually think it is too early, right? Because everything's talk until you get on, it's like Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So I think, we'll have to see when we hit the field if things really change. But I do know with Kirk Campbell being offensive coordinator, they do want to be a little bit more aggressive with the pass. Now, I do think the run game is going to still be our base and our foundation, but I think you could see the playbook opened up. I think that's going to be the case there. And then defensively, though, I think you're going to see a lot of similarities. I mean, just an aggressive, tough, smash mouth football team. I mean, that's the bread and butter. And I don't think they're going to get too far away from that. I just think you might see the offense be a little more expanded. But that's really going to come down to the quarterback, because if you don't have the weapon, you're limited in what you're able to do. So, that's kind of where we are with that right now.
So, TJ, back to the recruiting comment about Sherrone Moore broadening the scope and not necessarily just going after a Michigan type student athlete. I'm thinking of that two different ways, and you tell me which way I should be thinking. One would be, okay, we don't always go after all the 5 stars. We're not fill in the blank 3 or 4 other schools in the country that just feel like they can go anywhere at any time and have a shot at those guys? Or is it more, okay, we want a particular type of background at Michigan? And I'm not saying this in a snobbish kind of way,
Yeah.
but we don't want to have any issues off the field in their background. We're not going to take chances on an elite athlete if they've shown any kind of issues in school or anything like that. And obviously, there's a zillion of those guys that have cleaned up their act and been great NFL stars, and certainly learned, because we all have done stupid things when we were that age. So am I reading into that?
Yeah.
In a way?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think sometimes they would stay away from top 100 guys or maybe even 5-star guys because they know that there's a price. There's that comes with, you got to write a check, right? I think Sherrone's going to be more aggressive in that area. I also think there is like a culture thing, right? Because if you remember, in 2017, Harbaugh had his best recruiting class ever, which was a top 5 class. But if you also remember, majority of that class transferred out. And that really hurt him in that 2020 season because those guys would have been juniors and seniors, right? So that was one of outside of hanging on to Don Brown for too long, right? Which was a major issue. But the other issue was there was not true seniors and juniors. They were very limited in that area. We were a very young team in 2020, which you saw that young team grow and become national champions. Or Big Ten champions, right, with Aiden Hutchinson and such. But I think what you're going to see is, I think because the culture is already instilled in the program, that Sherrone's going to feel a little more comfortable maybe getting the player with maybe some character concerns, right? Maybe he has had trouble, and they're not just going to turn him away like they used to in the past. So I think you're going to see that mixture. I mean, we haven't fully seen it yet because, like I said, the recruiting staff hasn't been at full capacity yet. So recruiting's just now starting to pick up. We didn't do any junior days in January, so we really missed out on that. So March, we're starting to get visitors, and we're gonna see what transpires. I'm looking forward to it.
So TJ, you hit on something that I love, these kind of nerdy things. So here's the 2017 class right here.
Yeah.
Obviously, Donovan Peoples-Jones, wow, took off in the NFL. He's doing just fine for himself.
Yep.
Hooking up with CJ Stroud there. Aubrey Solomon, he turned into a player.
Yeah. Yeah, but he transferred, went to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Luigi Villain transferred. He got injury problems, though. Oliver Martin went to Nebraska. Well, he transferred twice. He went to Iowa and then Nebraska. Cesar Ruiz, first-round draft pick.
Yep.
Ambry Thomas worked out.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of when I saw Solomon there. Ambry Thomas, yes.
Yeah, and then Benjamin St. Juste, he transferred to Minnesota.
Yep.
Drew Singleton transferred to Rutgers. We lost all these guys, man. I think James Hudson went to Cincinnati and turned into a stud. I think he became a first-round pick. Yeah, all these guys. Tariq Black had foot issues. Nico Collins turned into a stud.
Yeah.
And then, the Dylan McCaffrey hype, that didn't work out.
Josh Ross.
Yeah, Josh Ross worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, Dylan McCaffrey. Where did he wound up, like at Rice or somewhere, or Colorado?
Yeah, he transferred to his dad's college in Colorado. It was like
something military. Yes. I don't know what they do. And Andrew Stuber, he played a little bit, right?
Yep, he stayed.
Yeah.
He turned into a starting offensive lineman. He got drafted in the NFL. And then Quiddy Pay down there.
Yeah.
That was and then Brad Hawkins actually just became a GA.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay.
Yep.
I just saw that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So see that class had a lot of guys with attitude issues. And there was a big culture problem with the program. There's a lot of locker room issues.
Ben Mason was a good player.
Hell yeah. Yeah, he was a great player. He got drafted by the Ravens. Yep.
And
Brad Robbins also got drafted.
Yeah, you don't put punters and kickers in with the rest of them. They're always going to be at the bottom. But Brad Robbins obviously was really good. Yeah. So on the surface, it didn't look like that class burned them that much. There were a lot of good players that stuck around.
Well, I mean, actually, but the top of that class, they all transferred out, right? So majority of the top guys, see the guys who stayed, so like your Quiddy Pays and your Andrew Strubers, those guys were your 3-4. That's the Iowa plan, Mark. That's you find the diamond in the rough, and then you develop them, and then you turn them into draft stars. That's your, it's like we just got Sam Laporta. He was like a 2-star. They got him from what was it? Bowling Green. Iowa got him from Bowling Green. So, yeah, so, that you just can't. I think Harbaugh learned from that class. A lot of guys with attitude issues. There was a big culture problem in the locker room. And, ever since then, he changed his approach. Ever since the 2018 class. So the 2018 class is the one with Aiden Hutchinson. And that class was actually one of his lower. I think we only had 8 4-stars, possibly 9. But it was a very low blue chip ratio class. And that's the class that won as seniors our first Big Ten championship. And then from that point forward, he started recruiting a different caliber player, which was more of a, I guess you could say, a Michigan man. It took less chances, you could say.
Who's your favorite player of all time? Michigan player.
Chris Perry. Chris Perry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 2003 in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember watching him play, and he just ran with so much heart. I loved Chris Perry, man. Yeah, he was the man.
You have a favorite player right now?
Right now? Yeah, I mean, probably Will Johnson. I mean, I think Will Johnson's a stud. He's hard not to love. My favorite player recently was Aiden Hutchinson, though. Dog. Just a savage. Played with all heart. Now he's on the Lions, so I'm thrilled. I get to watch his career. But yeah, right now it'd have to be Will Johnson. Although I'll tell you, I'm ecstatic about some new kids coming. I think we got some young talent that's going to be household names, just like the guys we previously mentioned.
Considering what this Michigan secondary looked like in 2020, let's say, versus we all saw Will Johnson. We knew it was coming. We knew he had that kind of talent. So obviously he already had the spotlight on him. Then during the back stretch of 2022, he was showing us, okay, this guy is on the move and he's going to be what he was set out to be. And then Sanders still obviously gets moved from offense to defense. And early this season, I thought this is the best tandem quarterbacks in the country, not just because of their coverage skills, but because of their ball skills. Like Sanders still made interceptions that I thought, my goodness, he's tracking the ball like a wide receiver.
Yeah, right. Because he is, right?
That's what he was.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Josh Wallace, right? I mean, Josh Wallace was the other outside corner, and he's going to be drafted. I think he's a pretty talented. He had a good combine, ran good numbers, but yeah, I mean the DB room really upgraded from the previous years. Especially on the outside corners. Plus the scheme. I'll be honest, the scheme helped it a lot, right? Because they started disguising coverages instead of leaving their men on islands, and we really got exposed in those Ohio State games with the crossing routes and the flat routes and all that. But I think
back in the good old days.
TJ. Yeah, I bet for you. But yeah, they're great now though. Days are amazing these days. But I mean, the DB room now it's a healthy DB room. I mean, I think going forward, even after Will Johnson, we got a lot of talent. So we should see a lot of continued success in that area.
Do you have interactions with Ohio State fans?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, especially on Twitter. I mean, I'm clashing with them constantly. I mean, sometimes you'll find some good Ohio State fans, but a lot of them just want to, talk shit all the time. Just say the most crazy. I've seen you complain about. Absolutely. I see you talking about different fan bases from Notre Dame to others. Like you got those types of fans out there who like you could post something so innocent and they'll just be like, oh, cheaters. The cheaters from up north. It's like, oh God, here we go. You just reported 4 minor violations, but we're going to look past that.
Yeah. Well, my approach to that this season, and I hope people understood where I was coming from and respected it. And I think based on the contingent of Michigan fans that we have, they understand when there was news coming out, when it came out, I covered it. I discussed it. I didn't go to either extreme to say this is nothing or this is the worst thing in the world. And then once we had our last bit of evidence, once we had the last bit of that situation, once we got to those final 3 games and Sherrone Moore took over for Harbaugh, and that was pretty much, the Big Ten doing what they felt was right. I basically said, we're not talking about this anymore until there's a final judgment on this. There's no reason to talk about it because there's no more new information. So it is what it is. They got a great team. And here we go. We'll see what they do.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, Plus, at a certain point, there comes a point where teams are changing. Let's say we had signs, right? Teams are changing their entire systems. When you're playing against Ohio State or Penn State or Alabama, Washington, and we saw how extreme it got with the playoff hype or the playoff preparation, right? The guys weren't even using their tablets anymore, right? Which is a whole different, I guess, situation with the whole tablet hacking or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think, as the NCAA president said, we want it fair and square, which, I mean, we did. I mean, we flat out did. I mean, did things happen previously? I mean, I'm sure they did. I'm sure when the NCAA rules on it, which they haven't yet, we'll see what transpires. But I mean, the interesting thing now is that Harbaugh is gone. I'll be honest, I'm not expecting much of a punishment in that area. Plus, what's really interesting is they still can't find a link with Stallions and CMU. That where that picture of him on the sidelines, they can't.
Yeah.
From what I've gathered from some insiders, they have no NCAA still doesn't have an answer for that. So that'll be interesting to see what they do with that. But I mean, moving forward, it is what it is. I mean, the beautiful thing is we won the national championship. So what are you gonna do? Nothing you can do about it now. We won the title. We reached the mountaintop, and it is what it is.
Yeah, and I, for one, certainly when I first heard it, thought I go in two different directions. For the good of college football, I want nothing to be there to be nothing to it.
Yeah.
Regardless of what team it is. I want the competition to be fair and all of that. But obviously, whatever happened. And if it did happen in such a way that it was egregious cheating, then I want justice to be served one way or the other. And so we'll just see what they come back with. But I don't expect it to be much of anything because I think we've seen everything we know about this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I'd also say, though, to touch on, I'm not saying sign stealing doesn't have an impact because, I mean, obviously there's a benefit or you wouldn't do it, right? But, we're in an era of college football that is so damn gray. And teams are pushing the limits so far in so many different areas, right? You have the portal, you have tampering going on like no other, right? You have players being bought like never before, making the 80s blush, right? I mean, I just think we're in an era where I don't know who is playing clean. I'm not saying that cheating or sign stealing is, so what, it means nothing. But I am saying like everyone's pushing the limits in every direction. It's just who's doing what, right? So I don't look at like our run any less than what it was because I simply think there are so many damn programs pushing the limits in so many areas. It's it's like who isn't pushing the limits, in all different facets. And I think acquiring talent is far worse than stealing signs. Like, I think if you're poaching kids or if you're buying recruits, I think that has a greater on-field impact than signs. Personally, not to say that sign stealing again doesn't have an impact. Obviously it has some benefit, but if you're getting the top talent in the country, you can do more with that than you can with signs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know what cheating is though anymore in terms of player acquisition, especially since the NCAA came out with this thing this week where they're like, our hands are off of this because we're losing every court battle in sight. So it was inducements before, but now they're saying, well, inducements are fine.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be so interesting to see how the summer plays out. I have no idea what to expect, I mean, it's going to be nuts. Cause I mean, there's no limit now.
Yeah.
So who knows what to expect? That's why there needs to be some type of resolution with the CBA or something. But I think we're years away from that, maybe 2 to 3.
Yeah, I'm going to be formulating some kind of video here in the next few weeks if I can put it together in my head where I'm putting together some kind of future college football world that's realistic, that's not going back to 1955 because that's just never going to happen for as much as I would like it to be yesteryear and student athletes to be true student athletes and all of that other business. But they deserve to be paid. They're Americans. It's a capitalist system. They just deserve to be paid. That's all there is to it. I think it's causing a lot of problems and it's bad for the game in terms of the player movement and all that. But we cannot prohibit free citizens in this country to be able to have the same rights that everybody else has. So
Yeah, it's pay for work.
It is.
That's what it is. It's pay for work. That's exactly what it is. I mean, these kids it is a job. I mean, I understand this. I brought this up before on the show, but like, I know the scholarship is a thing and it does matter and it does have value, but there's also more to that. How much is the employee, we'll say the athlete, the employee, how much money are they bringing to the university or the athletic department? And the reality is they're paying for the athletic department. So there's no reason they shouldn't be compensated for their talent.
Well, that's what I would love to see the math on. I would love to see the math, because think about this, TJ. If the average college football player going forward is going to make, we'll just pick a number, $100,000 a year.
Okay.
First of all, I don't know how they're going to manage the locker room in terms of, does everybody get $100,000 a year? The long snapper gets $100,000 a year. The star quarterback gets $100,000, or it's going to be all over the place. And who's going to determine that? What your right guard's worth versus your quarterback versus your backup outside line? Like, wow. Okay. But anyway, let's say it's $100,000 a year. You got a roster of 85 scholarships. You've got an $8.5 million payroll.
Right.
I know places like Michigan, that's fine. They cover that easily through Big Ten money and everything else that they've got going on, merchandise, etc. However, how many programs across the country can sustain that? And are they going to share the wealth to sustain the whole league? Or what are they going to do? All those things need to be worked out, because you're talking about 70 power conference programs with $8.5 million payrolls. That's $600 million. Is the sport clearing that much money?
Yeah, well, I think what you're going to see is, and we're seeing it, is you're going to see these super conferences, which are occurring as we speak, right? And it's going to be the haves, have-nots, right? So the 20 teams in the Big Ten were 2 away, and then you're going to have the 20 teams in the SEC. And, those are going to be the ones who can afford that $8.5 million payroll. But I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Mark, I'm hearing rumors that some of these payrolls are 15, 20 million. You got some of these programs paying 15, 20 million. Right. So, I think it will, work itself out. You kind of touched on, what player is going to make what. Well, the market's going to decide that, right? What programs can afford to pay the backup or third string guard however much money it is, right? The TV contracts are going to determine what these programs really can do, because they're the ones who are, paying for the, the entire athletic departments and what their budgets. So, I just think you're going to see that the Big Ten and the SEC, and then I know I've seen you've had some shows on, what's going to happen with the ACC and maybe the Big 12, but I think you're going to see that the SEC and the Big Ten are just going to be in a position where they can afford to pay more. And then I think you're going to see some of the lower programs, like a Group of 5 programs, they're just got to be in a different division with a different set of rules in terms of paying for players.
Sure.
Because they're all operating in the red. They don't even make money.
Exactly. So nobody's going to get paid anything unless NILs want to give the quarterback at Kent State money. That's fine. They should be allowed to do that. But in terms of, the system generating money for the MAC and the Sun Belt, no. Right. They're not making that kind of money. Even
with the TV contracts, they're still in the negative. Like schools like I'm in Michigan, right? So schools like Eastern Michigan and Western and Central, I mean, they're not operating in the green. So, I just think you're just going to see a real change in the landscape.
Absolutely. Great stuff, TJ. Appreciate you being here. Before we let you go, you may have this conversation in future weeks with John, but since I probably won't be here, would love to know what you have to say about spring football in regards to, what are you going to be looking out for? Of course, the quarterback position is first and foremost, but, what are you looking out for? Who do you think that could be, whether that's a 2024 signee or it's somebody that's been on the roster for a year or two kicking around as a backup that could break out this year?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, the quarterback position is the battle of battles. And I will say this, Mark, I think our answer at quarterback is not on the team. I think we will be portal shopping. Although, we'll see, does Alec Orji get accurate? I hope so. Because if he does, then it's going to be a great time in Michigan. But if he doesn't, then we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to be poaching and tampering like everybody else. But yeah, so I think, we saw Samaj Morgan start to really shine towards the end of the year. I think he's going to be one of those sophomore breakout players. I think we're going to see that. A tight end to look out for because, AJ Barner's moving on to the NFL is Marlon Klein. He's your next name to watch. I fully expect him to really take a leap next season. And there's already a lot of good reports from winter conditioning and things of that area. But Giovanni El-Hadi, I completely agree. I think Giovanni El-Hadi, along with Greg Crippen, are really going to be cornerstone players for that offensive line. Like I mentioned earlier, you got Miles sitting at left tackle and Josh Preby at right guard. And then another one to, like I said, that offensive line is going to be strong. Andrew Gentry at right tackle. He was a top 50 recruit coming out of high school, but he went on one of those Mormon missions for 2 years. I think it's going to be his opportunity to be at the right tackle. And I think you're going to see him really shine. And then the defensive side of the ball, things are a little bit more concrete there. I mean, there are going to be some positions for battle, but one of the Sams I would like to mention is TJ Guy. I think he's going to be next up in that, he's going to be a name that you're going to start hearing next year, really break through, because defensive line wise, Mason Graham's going to be there. Kenneth Graham's going to be there. We got Derek Moore back and Josiah Stewart. So there's nothing too new. Zeke Berry, I would agree with that. But the thing about Zeke Berry is he's going to be playing behind Rod Moore and Makari Page, right? So it's going to be a similar system to like Keon Saab started to shine towards the end of the year, and we just saw him unfortunately transfer to Georgia, Alabama. But I think you could see Zeke Berry begin to get more playing time in a Keon Saab role. But the corner to watch is Jair Hill. Because we don't have so our second cornerback spot is up for grabs right now. We don't have someone opposite of Will. Mike Sanders still is gone, so the nickel corner is going to be in question too. And I do think Jaden McBurrows is going to handle that. But I think the name to watch for the outside corner position is either going to be DJ Waller or Jair Hill. But Jair Hill has the most upside, in my opinion.
Good stuff, TJ. I love the personal breakdowns because I float around to all these different shows, all these different teams, and I get guys on like you, and then I can soak up the personnel and try to catch up with everything that's going on at Michigan. I gave myself a little bit of a test on air a few weeks ago where I went to a site called Sporkle, and you can look up different quizzes, different tests, and they had a Michigan football roster for 2023, and I thought, I'm going to look like a fool if I don't perform pretty well filling in these names live on air. But I hit on 41. I got 41 players.
Oh, 41 like out of the 85 or 41 starters?
41 out of the whatever on the roster.
Okay.
I had to type in everybody I could think of.
All right. That's cool.
Quite a little bit better 3 months ago than I did today, but I tend to forget some guys. But yeah.
Let me ask you this though before I get off here. So, what's your where do you think the standings are going to be in the 24 season? I know we have spring ball to go through and we have another portal session to go through, but where do you got the rankings for the Big Ten? Yeah. Who's going to be in the Big Ten championship? Early prediction, and then what are your top 4 programs?
Yes, definitely an early prediction because I'm the guy that even 2 days before the season is saying, you know what, I'm still thinking about it. We'll release our picks. I would hate to be obvious. I do think Ohio State and Oregon are probably the 2 best teams. Although I think people are really shortchanging Michigan out there as some kind of 8-4, 9-3 team for sure. And I don't think that there is an obvious loss on the schedule. There's not one. There's nobody that Michigan could not beat on this schedule. I know it's a difficult schedule. I know Texas comes to town early and the quarterback situation has to be figured out. But beyond that, of course, they lose great players and a ton of production.
Yeah.
I think USC is the biggest wild card in the conference. Like I could see them elevating.
Yeah, but can they get their defense together, Mark? I don't know.
They hired a really good defensive coordinator from UCLA, DeAnton Lynn, and he brought Eric Henderson with him from the NFL. They coached the D line, and he's much accomplished. So I think they've made some strides, at least at the coaching level, to shore up the defense.
Right, and they do have the talent. They
Yeah.
get all the top, kids in Cali. So, yeah, Oregon's schedule looks pretty easy. I was actually debating an Oregon fan last night. I went through their schedule. It looks pretty easy. I think Michigan. I told John this. We're a quarterback, wide receiver, and corner away from being a very dangerous team next year, and I expect those positions to be filled in the portal.
Wide receiver, corner, and what?
Quarterback. So quarter and corner, because we don't have a number 2. I fully expect them to grab another corner, even though we have the guys I mentioned like Jair Hill and DJ Waller. Michigan just seems to want the competition at those positions, and I fully expect them to go after those 3 positions the hardest in the portal. Although I've also heard from an insider that they're going to look at a linebacker because, and I didn't mention this, but the duo of Houseman and Barnum, they're gonna be dogs. Like Barnum we got him from Maryland.
Yep.
He was Pro Football Focus's number 1 linebacker last year, and Ernest Houseman was the number 1 transfer from Nebraska, linebacker recruit from Nebraska. So should be pretty steady on the defensive side. But I think those three positions in the portal, we fill those, we're going to be a problem.
Yeah, I believe Houseman was the Big Ten Defensive Rookie of the year before. And I found it interesting that he would go to Michigan and sit. Not that he sat the whole season, but obviously he played behind 2 excellent linebackers. But he made that choice, and here it is, wide open for him to take over now.
Right.
Yeah, those 2 guys may turn out to be just as good as Colson and Barrett.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both athletic as hell, so I'm excited to see what they do.
To answer your question, I'll go... Man, I hate to be chalk. I'll make this one statement. Think about this, TJ, going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out a few years ago that these preseason publications like Street and Smith and Athlons and the rest of them, they're too conservative with their predictions. They basically move teams like 1 game. I don't know if they do that out of fear that they're going to look stupid if they go out on a limb, but you can almost take last year's standings and they'll change a game here and there. And I thought, is that true? Does college football stay that much the same every year? And we're talking like 6-7 years ago, I'm asking myself this question. So I started going through the standings every year and I thought 3 games sounds like a interesting barometer. 3 games that's a significant change to me. If you're 9-3 and then the next year you drop to 6-6, or you're 3-9, you jump to 6-6. So I just kind of arbitrarily made 3 games a barometer of how many teams make that kind of a movement from year to year. And I counted it. I went through every season for like the last 5 years, went through every season. And out of what was about 65 teams, and obviously there have been added in the Big 12, now 70 teams in the Power 5. And I ask this question to college football fans all the time. How many teams do you think changed that significantly from one season to the next? They always say like 8, 6, 9. No, it was 25 last year.
A 3-game change difference?
Had at least 3-game change. Just look at the Big Ten, like 5 teams in the Big Ten. Who thought Northwestern was going to go 7-5? Right. They were 1-11 the year before. Again, 5 teams in the Big Ten last year. So I don't know who they are, but it's almost like clockwork that 5 or 6 teams in the Big Ten are going to.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to see an even greater variance now because you got all the portal, right? Yeah. You got teams adding that talent and losing that talent, so you're going to see those fluctuations.
So I say that to say we all, or most of us, tend to be very conservative and think, okay, well, it's going to be Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. And it probably will be at the top. I think most of that change happens with the middle teams. The elites kind of stay the same. So they don't change too much. I think Washington's an obvious pick for this year. They're not going to go 9-3 or less for them. So they'll drop. Yeah. But I tend to put I'm wrestling with your question, Oregon and Michigan in the 2 spot behind Ohio State and the other one at 3. And I trust Penn State a little bit more just because I know they lost a ton on defense. Their defense was so ridiculous last year
Yeah.
athletically, and they lost a lot, but they do bring back guys like Abdul Carter and Dennis Denai Sutton and those guys.
Mhm.
And Drew Aller may take off and prove to be the guy that we expect him to be. So I'm going to give them the edge over USC in the 4
Okay.
spot.
Okay. So you have Michigan at 3, Oregon at 2?
If we don't take schedules into
Okay.
play and just say who the better
Yeah.
teams are, I'm going to keep Michigan at 2.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I would go with you there. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if Michigan could just answer the quarterback question, because we all know how much that's going to affect the reality of next season. So
If
yeah,
Alex Orji becomes Jalen Milroe, and I think
yes,
that's a fairly apt comparison, then Michigan could win the Big Ten.
yes, exactly. Michigan could be very dangerous if they can get that figured out. Very dangerous because they have the talent. A lot of people think, 18 guys are going to the draft, they're going to be depleted, but that's actually not the case. They've developed really well. We have a lot of, we don't lose a lot of guys in the portal, so the classes really stay together. So you still have that, that same line of blue chip ratio we've had, and I just think I think Michigan's going to be a team that's going to surprise a lot of people. But I mean, I can understand why people might look down on it outside of being depleted, going to players entering the draft. The schedule is very daunting, But if they can that Texas game is going to be, one, amazing, but two, is really going to tell the tale of what we're going to be looking at for the season.
There are so many people across the country, and you probably heard this, that just think Texas is going to come into the big house and just notch a W like it's automatic. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, they are bringing back Quinn Ewers, though.
Sure.
So I can, look, Texas was a good team. I mean, Sarkisian did a great job with them. But, traveling on the road, this is why we love college football. I mean, that's, that matters a lot. So I think them coming here, it being a big game, it's going to be early in the year. And the beautiful thing about early games is there's not a lot of tape, right? So a lot of things can happen. And, I think Michigan's the physicality of that game is really going to be who wins that game. Again, I always go back to who's our quarterback, though, because I'll be honest, as a fan, that is the one question that's bothering the hell out of me, because I don't know how excited to be or like how cautious I need to be right now.
And I'll leave it on this, at least from my side, before you get the closing comment. This whole 12-team playoff gives a whole different take on the season. And I'll take it from an Ohio State side, but you could say this for any team that has championship aspirations. Let's say Michigan takes the Big Ten. That's not going to make for a lot of happy people in Columbus and throughout Ohio and elsewhere in the nation that wear scarlet and gray. However, there's a much different opportunity that, okay, you're a 6 seed, you're in the playoff. There's your opportunity to take off. And of course, Ohio State already gave us a glimpse of that 2 years ago in the playoff against Georgia, that, okay, this is what's possible when you give a team an opportunity. And this is going to happen for a lot of teams that don't win the conference going forward.
Yeah, it's a whole new season, right? And, I think also you're going to see for the first time with this 12-team playoff is it's going to be a wake-up call for teams. Teams are going to lose that game where they lose maybe that top 4 seed, that bye, but it's also going to wake teams up. And you know how that goes with professional sports. That might be just the loss they needed to become a real, to get everything right on path. So, I'm so excited for the 12-team playoff. I don't like that they're already talking about expanding it to 14. I think that's insane because we haven't even done 12 yet. But, yeah, it's, people are like, oh, we're going to lose value in the regular season games. I don't think that's true because people are going to want home field advantage. It's like the NFL, right? And I just got a taste of that this year with the Lions because we're finally good. But like every week was like, it was like a playoff game. It was intense as hell. And you're going to see that with college football. I don't think there's going to be too much loss, And, a lot of people want to knock, oh, well, what if Ohio State and Michigan play again in the playoffs? Yeah, what if they do? That's going to be the most intense game ever. That's going to be amazing. We're all going to love it. So I don't think it's going to lose the rivalry is going to lose anything if that happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. TJ Konarski, Ronin Sports Talk. There's the handle right there on Twitter. So get on over there, track TJ's work. TJ, we appreciate you making this happen. Great stuff out of you.
Yeah, it was an honor to talk to Mark Rogers. I've been a big fan for a while, and it was great to talk football. And go blue. I'm sure John's watching. So what up, John? Let's get ready for spring football. I'm excited, and let's see who's our quarterback, because that's the question that needs to be answered.
All right, TJ. Thanks for being here. You have a great night.
All right, Mark. See ya.
All right, let's tie up some loose ends here before we say goodbye right here at the Voice of College Football. So coming up on Wednesday, we've got our Buckeyes show live at 11 a.m. Eastern time over on the Ohio State channel. And also our Wednesday includes Florida State live at 6, Miami live at 7. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. John, thank you so much for allowing me to be the guest host this week. And Michigan fans, thanks for putting up with me. I enjoyed it. TJ was awesome. Tons of insight there. Please hit the like button on the way out. Use the Amazon link in the description section of the videos. It's free. It's there. It's a way for you to contribute and not spend a penny. So thank you for doing that. And again, please hit the like button on the way out. We'll see you on Buckeyes live at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. Most of us are on the internet pretty much all the time. It's fun. You get to socialize, you get entertained, and in this day and age, it's pretty much necessary. And even if you're one of those people that's not on the internet all the time, you know what is? Your personal information. And there are people out there trying to hack you all the time. They want your email address, they want your phone number, they want your place of employment, and they want to do bad things with it. There's also fairly legitimate corporations and companies that want your information. They want it for marketing purposes. They're going to buy it. They're going to sell it. They're going to trade it. At the very least, it's annoying to you. It's a nuisance. It's aggravating. Your email gets cluttered up with spam email. You get robocalls all the time. That's at the very least. At the worst, it's a threat to your family, to your friends, to your personal information, to your banking, to your finances, to your security, to your safety, to your identity. It can be pretty serious. This video is sponsored by Aura. I got hacked and it was pretty obvious. This was about 8 or 9 months ago, and there were red flags all over the place. And I didn't exactly know what to do, but I knew I needed to do something quickly. I mean quickly. I researched 8, 10, or 12 companies immediately. I went all over the place. I asked people. I was online looking for the best company that could serve my needs and secure my information. You know who I found? Aura. And I'm glad I did. It was amazing. I contacted them. They got right back to me immediately. Their customer support is phenomenal. Their customer service is first-rate, friendly. They are detailed. They know what they're doing, and they do it right, and they will protect you. In addition to everything I just mentioned, they've got a password keeping service. They keep your credit score. They notify you anytime there's a possible data breach. This has happened to me a number of times. I'm getting notifications all the time when there's a possible compromise to my credit score or anything that I don't want. They've got a VPN that will allow you to browse the internet anonymously. It's amazing. And again, customer service support available 24/7. Click the link in the description section below and get 2 free weeks of Aura. Protect your finances, protect your information, protect your privacy, protect your identity. I did, and I'm glad I did. Aura, thank you so much for what you've done for me, and now for my Voice of College Football community.